Now, after high school, I somehow or other ended up in college. And while I was in college, I mostly worked as a cook. I was a short order cook. Sometimes I was a dinner cook. Occasionally, I worked in a very fancy restaurant once, but mostly not. Mostly I was a short order cook. And I'd work behind the line. Now, one of the places that I worked was Shoney's. And I worked the dinner shift, which means you get there at 4, and you cook until 10, and then you clean until midnight, and at midnight you clock out and lock out. And one of my jobs was to carry the trash out during that 2-hour interval. And I would carry the trash out. Oh, and the trash always included any leftover chicken from the fryer. And I always made sure there was a lot of leftover chicken from the fryer. And so I'd wrap that up in aluminum foil, and I'd take it out to the dumpster. I'd put the garbage in, and I'd set my aluminum foil package of chicken on top of it. And then after I clocked out and locked out, I'd go back by the dumpster and pick up my chicken, and then I would go to the house full of hippies where I lived. And they were all waiting up for me. So, while I was working there was this woman named Ruth working there. She worked in the dining room. And she was a tall, willowy blonde, bleach blonde, with a cigarettes and whiskey voice. And she drove me nuts. I think she was about 10 years older than me. And I knew, in my heart, I knew there were things she could teach me. I wanted to go out so bad with Ruth I could taste it. And so every time I got a chance, any way I could get her attention. And she ignored me because outside in the dining room and back behind in the kitchen, they don't communicate that much, and they don't really like each other that much. But one night, out of the blue, Ruth says, "Hey, chicken, you want to walk me home?" Oh, yes. So we clocked out and locked out, and I started walking with Ruth across the neighborhoods over to where she lived. And she was holding on to my arm. And sometimes she'd walk close enough so that our thighs brushed against each other as we walked. And if I said anything even remotely funny, she thought it was amazing. And even when it wasn't funny, she thought it was wise. And this is going to be a great night. So we get to her house, and it's back in the neighborhood, and we go up the 3 steps to the stoop. And she opens the door, and it slides out the deadbolt. We go inside, and she plops down in the middle of the couch. So I sat down kind of as far from her as I could get on the couch because I didn't want to be pushy. Figured I could, as the evening went on. As soon as I sat down on the end of the couch, she scooted right over next to me with her thigh right up against my thigh. I said, "This is good. Let the teaching begin." And then I put my arm on the back of the couch, and I was getting ready to increment it down, till it was on her shoulders, and just almost as I was about to have my arm around her shoulders, blam, blam, blam! Somebody banged on the door with a massive fist. And she said, "Would you get that, honey?" So I got up and walked over to the door, and I looked out through the window, and there is a big guy. I mean, this guy looked to me like he might have been a linebacker in pro football and then retired so he could work for the FBI. He had broad shoulders that tapered down in a perfectly straight line to his little feet. He had muscles and a square jaw and a pronounced brow. He looked like Dick Tracy. And he said, "Open up!" And I looked at Ruth and went, "Mm-hmm." And she said, "Yeah, let him in." So I opened up. He walked in, slammed me on the back, walked over to Ruth and said, "Let's party." And Ruth said, "Okay." And 30 seconds later, without me understanding at all how it happened, the three of us are in his car, which is a big old Buick convertible. He's driving, Ruth's in the middle, I'm in the passenger side, tops down, and we're driving down Kingston Pike headed west. And it's after midnight. And Ruth is snuggled up to me as close as she can get with her hand on my leg. And I thought, this is weird, but it could work out. And after a little while, we come to a place that I knew. There's a great big parking lot, and in the middle of this great big parking lot is a relatively small brick-o-block building painted red, and the parking lot is completely full of cars. This is the notorious Senators Club. The only place in Knox County where you could get a mixed drink and gamble. And you could only do that if you were a member. Well, the big guy was a member. And so we walked up to the door, he blam, blam, blam. Somebody looked low. "Oh, it's you." No, in we went. So inside, there's a jukebox, and they're playing country music. And there are a dozen tables scattered around the edge of a dance floor. And the three of us went over and sat down at one of the tables, and Ruth and I each ordered a gin and tonic, and Big Guy ordered a Jack Daniels on the rocks. And we sat there, and we really turned out, we didn't have anything to talk about. So we just sat there. And then Big Guy said, "Well, I'm going to go play." By which he meant he was going to go gamble. And he got up, walked across the floor, and out through the little door behind the bar. That left me and Ruth alone. So I leaned into it and said, "Now, tell me more about yourself." And she said, "Well, let's dance." So we got up and we danced. And I started out thinking we were going to dance like this. We weren't. We were going to dance like this. And she polished all the brass right off my belt buckle, just dancing. And had her face buried in my neck. And I thought, this could work out. I'm not sure how. And after a long time, Ruth and I had another couple of gin and tonics. And after a long time, they flipped the lights. It was 2 o'clock, time to go home. Well, the Big Guy came storming out of the back. Waitress came over. Big Guy says, "Give him the bill." She handed me a bill. I had $40 in my wallet. It wouldn't start to touch that bill. I said, "Well, I've only got $40. I opened my wallet. I said, "I've only got $40. Big Guy had those $40 out in a heartbeat. Handed them to the waitress and said, "Put the balance on my tab." "You got a tab?" So at this point, I have no money. Well, I had seen Ruth's tip jar back at the house. It was this big old pickle jar that's full of money. So I figured as soon as we get back to Ruth's house, I'm going to get my money out of her and go home. Well, we get in the convertible. He says, "You're driving." So I get in the driver's seat. Ruth sits in the middle. He sits in the passenger seat. And Ruth is not touching me. She scooted all the way over next to him. And we're driving back toward Knoxville. And he said, "You guys are boring. We need to party." So he reached forward and he jammed the button on the glove box. Bam! And it didn't open. So it went bam, bam, bam! And it didn't open. So he hit it with his fist, bam! And it didn't open. So he kicked it with his knee, bam! And it didn't open. And so he reached under the seat and pulled out a pistol. And I saw the pistol, and even so, when he shot the glove box, it scared me to death. I swerved all over the road. Fortunately, there were no other cars out there at 2:30 in the morning. Glove box fell open. There's a hole in the hood in front of the windshield with smoke coming out of it. He reaches into the glove box and pulls out an 8-track tape. Ruth had to kind of spread her legs so he could get to the player, which was hanging under the dashboard. Jammed the 8-track tape in there, and Tom Jones sang "Lucky Old Son." I hate Tom Jones. Can't stand him. Well, we get back to Ruth's house, and I pulled up on the curb. And my plan now is to leave the keys in the ignition, jump out, run around, and be ready for Ruth when she comes out of the car, because I'm going to go in the house with her. That's not what happened. He reached across, grabbed the keys, grabbed them, put them in his pocket, jumped out of the car. Ruth jumped out of the car. She is beating on him with her fist, and she says, "I can't believe you did that to my car." And the two of them went up the 3 steps to the stoop, in the house, closed and locked the door. I heard the dead bug go snoop, and I'm standing alone on the sidewalk in Knoxville at 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, there wasn't anything to do but go to the dumpster and get my chicken. So I headed over for the dumpster, and I reached in there, and all there were some shreds of aluminum foil. The rats had got that too.